The relentless and often confusing time jumps in House of the Dragon Season 1 are being addressed in Season 2. That should get most fans jumping for joy. The twists and turns of family dynamics and the ongoing plotting and resultant schemes were dependent on these jumps in the first season, but audiences found them alienating. Join us in this video to see how this is being addressed and the 10 biggest mistakes young Rhaenyra made in House of the Dragon. First up, there is a guarantee that the time jumps and recasting are over. Ryan Condal, the House of the Dragon showrunner, has made plenty of assurances that it is all over. After the Season 1 finale, he thanked the audience for following the show through all the recasts and time jumps, but said they were all done now. From here on, he promised the stories will be told in real time, and the current actors will be playing their characters all the way to the end. There were no recasts. Right now, the story's timeline is in the Dance of the Dragons, and that's the story that will be told. The show's creators took great risks with the time jumps in Season 1 and the slower pace in the earlier episodes. They were aware of this and that audiences probably craved the familiar Game of Thrones storylines and the instant gratification they brought. But with great foresight and a lot of faith, the team treated them like prologues, designed to bring context. And once that was done, they gave audiences an adrenaline jolt with the last 3 episodes of the first season. And of course, the Dance of the Dragon civil war that lurks on the horizon. Coming up shortly are the 10 mistakes Rhaenyra made in House of the Dragon. Stay with us. So, it was all about making major moments satisfying. The changed personalities and the recasting definitely made everything confusing. But from a dramatic perspective, the major moments in the show depended on them. After Aemon's fight with Lucerys at Driftmark and Alicent's flaming confrontation with Rhaenyra, the pivotal eye for an eye demand would not have had nearly the power it eventually had. The gradual disintegration of Alicent and Rhaenyra's friendship had to be explored first, and this had to happen over the first 5 episodes. When Daemon grabbed Rhaenyra's throat in the finale, the scene wouldn't have had half the shock value if it didn't serve as a stark reminder of who he really is. If the earlier portrayal of him hadn't been properly explored, he had to be patiently established as a wife-murdering, cruel monster first. The decision of Rhaenys in the Dragon Pit not to cry Dracarys and incinerate everyone wouldn't have been nearly as meaningful if everyone hadn't been led to understand the Queen Who Never Was over 9 preceding episodes. But let's face it, although the necessary groundwork for Dance of the Dragons was laid by the time jumps, and while they accentuated the impact of the big moments in later episodes, they were still frustrating to the extreme. Building a rapport with characters when actors were changing every second episode was difficult, and character motivations deviated abruptly. All of this made everything ring hollow at times. Now, the 10 mistakes Rhaenyra made in House of the Dragon. She picked Criston Cole for Kingsguard. She's shown a hard-to-miss interest in Cole from the Heirs tournament. He defeated her uncle, Daemon. Later, when she had to name a new Kingsguard member, Criston was the only one that had battle experience, so she chose him. The choice seemed logical at the time, but Harold Westerling and Otto Hightower's hesitation about her choice was justified completely. Cole, it turned out, did not have the kind of reputation that the role requires. He broke his vows of celibacy because of inexperience, and the kind of willpower formed by years of experience was something he simply didn't have. Also, her seduction of Cole put a bunch of future problems just over the horizon. Her seduction led to him breaking his celibacy vows. This was after returning home from a night in King's Landing. The seduction put Criston Cole in an impossible position. He couldn't reject a princess's advances, and at the same time, he couldn't put his livelihood at risk. The consequences are not only his to bear, however. They'll hit Rhaenyra too. The hidden romance took on its own life, as these things do, and eventually, Criston inadvertently made an all-encompassing confession to Alicent Hightower. Criston wanted to protect his name and ended up snapping at Rhaenyra and Lennar's marriage and killing Joffrey Lonmouth. That was all on Rhaenyra because of the initial seduction. Rhaenyra didn't think common people's opinions mattered, and boy was she wrong. Stay with us. We'll be exploring that in a moment. Also, she snuck out with Daemon, and that sparked tensions and rumors. Rhaenyra never was shy or quiet. That was before the time skip. She desired to experience life, and she resented the restrictions her position and the court placed on her. She enjoyed the time she spent with Daemon, probably because there was an element of danger involved. In King of the Narrow Sea, when Daemon returns to King's Landing, their closeness is rekindled, and Daemon shows her a way she can sneak out at night. Rumors are sparked by their night together, and many relationships suffer in the aftermath. Rhaenyra's encouragement led to much of Daemon's chaotic and unpredictable behavior too. She bossed him around and disobeyed Viserys. Before the time skip, the relationship between Rhaenyra and Daemon often turned toxic. He wanted to cause trouble. That was his nature. After the time skip, he's still unpredictable, with a slightly chaotic personality. He goes after what he wants. He loves his family, especially Rhaenyra. She is excited by his bad boy streak, but antagonizing somebody with his personality traits is never a good idea. At her own wedding, she even challenged him to take her away and marry her in secret. A quick look around the room would tell her that it was full of people that would shove a sword between his ribs if he attempted such a thing, but she enjoyed calling his bluff. Meanwhile, Rhaenyra also thought common people didn't have valuable opinions. When Daemon and Rhaenyra were exploring King's Landing that night, she got a glimpse of the common people's opinion of her father's reign and her. She hated how she was portrayed in a reenactment of Viserys' succession and the reigning political situation, and the way people were lapping it up wasn't a miss on her. She told her uncle that the opinions of the people didn't matter. Another mistake. It took Daemon to remind her that this was untrue. Rhaenyra would have to outgrow this naivete or bear the consequences. Also, she cut the marriage suitor tour short because she was bored. In her youth, she took everything about her relationship with her father for granted. Viserys' decision to name her heir held firm, despite him later having a son. Rhaenyra even had the freedom to choose her own husband. Viserys' attempts to keep his daughter's affection threatened tradition in Westeros, and when tradition is threatened, peace becomes fragile. On a long tour, Rhaenyra had to entertain several potential suitors all over the land. She returned to King's Landing far ahead of schedule, simply because she got bored. The tour came at a cost. There were promises made to prestigious houses, time, and money, and she had forgotten all of those. She also humiliated proud houses and made future enemies. She never minced her words on tour. She was quick to humiliate those who requested her hand in marriage, and their unhappy reactions didn't bother her one bit. The thing is, when you disrespect enough people, conflicts start to brew. Jason Lannister also became a victim of her sharp tongue, and at her wedding, she jabbed him again. Rhaenyra has no idea of allies and their importance yet. To see how she misread the benefits and weight of her name, watch until the end of this video. And then she flew into a rage and rode off all by herself. An argument with her father on the royal hunt spurred her to ride off on her own. They were away from King's Landing, so she was unfamiliar with the area. Such disregard for her own safety, specifically because she was the princess and future queen, was totally irresponsible. Criston Cole caught up with her. They were attacked by a wild boar, and this could have had serious consequences if Sir Criston hadn't been present. Rhaenyra destroyed her friendship with Alicent by lying to her. When her father chose Alicent to be his wife, Rhaenyra felt betrayed. Things were never the same between them, and it also harmed her relationship with the king. There were moments reminiscent of the old familiar tenderness between them, but those were tied off with Rhaenyra's last lie. The rumors about Rhaenyra and Daemon were the catalyst. When Alicent confronted her, Rhaenyra lied, swearing on her mother's memory that she didn't do anything wrong that evening. Alicent caught her out on the lie, and the friendship died at that moment. And finally, she assumed that her name and title entitled her to station and acceptance. When Rhaenyra was named successor against years of tradition, it was a huge moment. She was about to become the first woman to ascend the Iron Throne. She was going to succeed exactly where Rhaenys failed. Her attempted interjection during a small council meeting infuriated Viserys, and this prompted Otto to make the suggestion she be sent away to select a new Kingsguard member. At that moment, Rhaenyra assumed her word carried weight and that it would be accepted without hesitation. However, she had no experience and nothing to offer. This could carry over into Season 2. And that, folks, is the lowdown on what to expect from House of the Dragon Season 2, and an analysis of the mistakes Rhaenyra made up to now. And it's also how we end this video. Thanks for joining us, and remember to look out for our next upload.